Good evening, you're with ET Now and warm welcome to a very special broadcast as part of our continuing coverage on Modi 3.0. We're doing a massive State of the Nation survey. I'm Sandeep Gurumurthy. Joining me in the news centre in Delhi is my colleague Supriya Srinath with the big story we're tracking this Monday evening.
Thank you very much for that, Sandeep, and a great evening to all of our viewers there. There is really no stopping the Modi juggernaut, or so it seems. That's the big verdict on the NDA government, which has just completed 3 years in office. The State of the Nation survey that was conducted by Times Now, in association with leading people research firm VMR, finds that the NDA will come back to power with more seats if elections were to be held today. Interestingly enough, most people believe that the Modi government has delivered on its Achhe Din promise, despite the note ban and the economic slowdown.
But it's not a very impressive show by Prime Minister Modi when it comes to fighting communalism, with most of the people saying that 3 years of NDA rule has further polarized the country. Even on the Ram Mandir issue, citizens of the country believe the centre should wait for the final court judgment before making any move. So what are the big achievements of the Modi government and what all corrective steps are required to get the balance right? A power-packed debate on the key takeaways from the mega State of the Nation survey. That's our top story on ET Now at 9 p.m. in this special telecast.
All right, and joining us on the show this evening, we've got Ms. Aarti Jairat, Ms. Smita Prakash, Indrajit Hazra, and of course our Jagannathan, who joins us all the way from Bangalore. Thank you very, very much, each one of you, for being with us. And Indrajit, let's just begin with you. You know, ET did a grand analysis of the Prime Minister's 3 years as well, and of course now there's this Times Now VMR survey. I really want to talk to you about the perception of the people as far as this government is concerned, and an overwhelming majority, 62.5%, believe this is a pro-poor government. This believes in welfare economy. So this is almost a left of the centre entitlement based government. My question is this how we read Mr. Modi? Did the markets and the and corporate India get him wrong, or did he really make a conscious attempt to change due to the whole Soot Bur Ki Sarkar allegations?
Well, I think here, I think the reading was, I mean, we were trying to read what we wanted to read into Narendra Modi, perhaps, you know, as the Gujarat Chief Minister, and kind of becoming a scaled up version of that. But I think the chair of the Prime Ministership also sort of matters in changing how a person behaves. So if we're looking at sort of Narendra Modi as somebody who is going to be completely right of the center in terms of economics, and you know, you have other also sort of stereotypical visions of Narendra Modi, then I think a lot of people would be disappointed or surprised, whichever way one looks at it. I would kind of look at Narendra Modi as a kind of Indira Gandhi 2.1, 2.2 kind of situation. Nationalism, left, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Well, it's a template that was there, but he's kind of morphed it in a 2017 New India with a lot of sort of, you know, iPhone and .com-ish, but it is a sort of left of center, right of center kind of mishmash, and I don't think those left wing, right wing, chicken wing things work that cleanly as it used to before. So that is something that Modi understands very well, and he's more like an Apple product, trying unlike the Microsoft, where you try to do a market survey about what people want and then you sell the product to them, whereas here Modi is basically saying this is the product that you actually want, and people, because of the incredible communication skills and the content and substance, they are they're lapping it up, and that's part of the reasons why you're seeing the results of your poll. Part of it, yeah.
Right. Let me take it to Jaggi as well. Jaggi, like Supriya pointed out, 62.5% believe that this is a pro-poor government. Perception is that it's a welfare government. What explains this stance? Do you think in many ways, Prime Minister Modi's economic policies are more left of centre and non-economic policies are what is right of centre? Is that a fair reading, and does this poll sort of validate that point of view? Jaggi?
No, I think Modi was never a free market guy, but he did believe in being more business friendly when he was the Gujarat Chief Minister. I think when he comes to Delhi, he has decided that he will have a change of persona, and that you cannot really rule India and get a wide popular base by being too pro-business. And in Gujarat, what worked will not work when you come to Delhi. So he has consciously moved himself and his party to the left of what we suspected the BJP was and what we thought Mr. Modi himself was. So that change is what has happened in the last 3 years. And he was never a very pro-market person. He was business friendly, but not necessarily market friendly. So I think that's the big difference, because he did not believe, for example, in privatization or giving free rein for prices to go anywhere they want. That was not the case in Gujarat either.
Aarti Jairath, I'm going to ask you a blunt question. Do you believe the metamorphosis of Mr. Modi from being a business-friendly Gujarat Chief Minister to being this left-of-centre policy maker in New Delhi happened more because the allegations that were raised, the perceptions that came to be created about Mr. Modi, the 10 lakh suit or the Sood Bood Ki Sarkar allegations, did that get the better of him, and which is why he perhaps shunned Indian industry and embraced what many people call populism?
Well, I mean, I think that, may have been the trigger, because that 10 lakh suit, followed by Rahul Gandhi's jibe, which really got under his skin. So that may have been the trigger. And the fact that he was unable to push the land bill through, he wanted to change the land bill that the UPA had passed. And he wanted to lift the restrictions that the UPA had put on acquiring land. So the fact that he was unable to do it. But, I think as Jaggi put it, the thing is that, Gujarat is different from the whole of India. And, in Gujarat, it worked well to be, business friendly and look very modern and, sort of give Tatas, clearance in one day to set up the Nano factory, to set up the Tata Nano factory. But, for the rest of India, when you're trying to, and you see the main task before Modi today is to widen the social base of the BJP. He has to expand, beyond the core constituency if he wants to keep winning elections and if he wants to come back for a second term in 2019. And I think he's looking at that very carefully. And obviously, in that process, he has to change his image, and he has to look much more pro-poor than pro-rich. And, I think demonetization has helped to, kind of effect that image change of Modi as somebody who's pro-poor, who's anti-rich, who wants to do something to, clean up the economy or clean up the system so that the poor benefit. And this is his narrative now. Wherever he goes, this is the narrative that he's giving. Even recently, when he celebrated the 3rd anniversary, he was at pains to stress that his government is pro-poor. So, I think this is all a conscious effort to enlarge and expand the BJP's voter base.
All right, a very conscious attempt to enlarge and expand the voter base. But what about people who thought that he's going to be a free market, pro-business thinker? That hasn't really happened. Smita Prakash, I'm going to throw this to you. Did the markets and did the Indian industry get it wrong to begin with? Mr. Modi was always, and perhaps always meant to do this, win on this whole development plank, then come into office, try to expand the voter base, and that would require embracing populism to a certain extent, which he perhaps has done. He's talking about being pro-poor. He's talking about those entitlement policies that he once shunned. So, there is a metamorphosis that has happened, but a very conscious one to perhaps break into more territories that the BJP hasn't been present in. Ms. Prakash?
Correct. Actually, when the NDA government came into power, he was expected to be right, and he has probably shifted more left in economic policies than even the UPA to that extent. As soon as he took charge, he said it is a Garibon ki Sarkar. So this whole concept of it being pro-business only and anti-poor, about how he's not going to care for it. That all changed, right? That all became different. He kept insisting that everything is going to be towards the poorest of the poor. So even though he's, initially during the campaign phase, they went on about Manrega, and the UPA government being something which was pandering to the poor, but not really doing anything for the poor, using the poor as a vote bank. So now when this government comes, they come about, and they're probably more socialistic than you can even imagine the Congress to be. So without stating that they are left of center, but it's quite clear that their policies is not pro big business, something that they were accused of. There's been a lot of course correction in the way the NDA government pitched itself in the first 6 months. I didn't hear exactly what your other experts had to say because I had an audio problem, but then I'm guessing that even Aarti had the same thing to say, that somewhere in between they got towards the halfway mark, they kind of figured out that this isn't working and everything changed. But there's no apology or there's no apologetic attitude when they make course corrections, because the elections which have been held, midterm elections which are happening, in the state level elections which are happening, the fact that they're winning election after election seems to give the impression that whatever steps they're taking, there is endorsement from the public. And the huge victory that they've seen in UP, despite the demonetization scheme, that itself is a shot in the arm for the NDA government.
Right. Smita, just to pick up on that point, I want to lead to the second key question that was asked and the outcome of that. Achhe Din, that was a promise in which this government came to power. Now, ironically, and some people might find this surprising, 60% of those who polled believed that quality of life has improved substantially. 60%. Indrajit, are you surprised with that sort of figure? Because, as business journalists, when we look at what's happened on the ground, if you look at, the jobs being created, which come down by a fifth, if you look at, per capita income, has it grown substantially? Nothing, economic data is clearly not backing this feeling of Achhe Din having returned. How do you explain this, Indrajit?
Well, I think much of it has to do with how it's been pitched, and I think it's been pitched consistently. And I think there is a subtle difference between when we talk about, let's say, left-wing sort of socialistic economics. I think there is a difference between previous governments where the idea was, we will take care of you if you're poor. Now the message is much more about, we will enrich you. We will actually make the situation such that you will actually become rich. It's something. It's a very empowering kind of idea. There is obviously a lag, rather a large lag between desire and action actually happening. But nonetheless, I think people have kind of registered the difference between a Mai Baap Ka Sarkar and one which is actually promising that you're going to have much more than just a color TV to be happy about. So I think that is reflected by the not necessarily empirical evidence all around that suggests that these most people, 60% you said, saying that we live much better than we used to.
Comment on that, do you agree with Indrajit, or do you believe that the things have actually changed on the ground as well? Because like we're saying, 60% is a startling number, one would imagine, who believe that their quality of life has improved substantially. And that probably doesn't stand when compared to empirical evidence that we get on the ground. How do you read this finding? Jaggi?
I think it's, I think 60% is communication. There is some change, but I think the people are still feeling good about the fact that they can see a visible leader who is trying to communicate with them directly and not through party hacks and other people. So I think the sense of direct connect with the people is what is showing up in this number. It is not so much that there is actually, as we know, all the numbers, whether it is industrial production or whatever, except for the price factor, where I think prices have been under reasonable control. I don't think we have seen any visible improvement in growth or any other factor that should make people good. We have also had 2 bad monsoons, But there has been one good monsoon. I think that can be the only explanation for the feel-good factor right now.
Okay, at least people with an economic bent of mind and those who have stakeholders in at least economic journalism believe that the facts on the ground is not supporting the narrative, which is that our lives have improved substantially. But Aarti Jairath, let me take this with you. Are you surprised that a lot of people believe that life has improved substantially a lot and 60% people believe things have changed? Or is this really smart communication? Because the BJP does master that. If Congress was a poor communicator, BJP really masters that art.
Oh, absolutely. I think today, you know, in the entire political landscape, there is no better communicator than Narendra Modi. And, you know, I mean, this figure is astoundingly high, really, because, you know, I don't know how much has really changed on the ground. And, in fact, anecdotal evidence suggests that people are losing jobs, layoffs are happening, you know, demonetization has hit, you know, the small-scale sector. So that's what anecdotally we hear. The thing is that I think this figure really reflects the kind of faith that people have in Modi. And that, you know, and it is really quite amazing that after 3 years in power, people still believe that Modi can deliver. And, you know, and I think they're prepared to wait for him to deliver. And that is why, you know, they sort of feel that, yes, Achhe Din are here. Even if they're not here today, they will definitely be coming tomorrow. So I think it's really an expression of faith in Narendra Modi's leadership. And, you know, I mean, the fact that he's able to communicate directly with people, he connects with them, he's on the go all the time. I mean, look at the man. He's traveling, addressing rallies, doing Man Ki Baat, he's on television, he's, you know, on social media. You know, I mean, his communication level, there's so much energy in that. And I think that's what people are responding to.
Indeed, I think even as people may complain on a few things, they're willing to give him chance, they're willing to wait on him. Smita Prakash, the other part of this entire poll had to do with his popularity, and looks like Mr. Modi's popularity at this point in time is unrivaled. I mean, the question that was asked is, who has been the best Prime Minister? And Mr. Modi tops that list heads and shoulders above of his nearest rival, that was Indira Gandhi. Do you believe his popularity at this moment is completely unparalleled, unrivaled, if I may?
See, I think at this stage we are back to talking like in the 70s of a Tina syndrome. There is no other alternative. So many of them who vote for Modi also think that there is no other option to this man, whether within the BJP or outside the BJP. So many of his supporters, when you speak to them, they might have been affected by the demonetization program, or they might have been not been able to get jobs. Still waiting for that Achhe Din to come, but still they feel that give this man a chance, because maybe not in this term, maybe in the next term, but then they don't see any other alternative to Mr. Modi. They say that if this man can't deliver, then nobody else can. That remains of his supporters. What of those who are not big fans of Mr. Modi? Even they are the ones who turn around and say that really there is no other alternative, because look at the opposition. Who is the one who can match up as far as popularity is concerned? Who is the one who can match up as far as energy is concerned, as far as a mass base is concerned, who comes with an organization which backs him to the hilt, which he controls, and he is able to command that respect from them, not just hold them with an iron hand or an iron grip. They seem to want to work for him, those who are working with him. They're not there because they're being coerced into it. They are there because they believe in it. So as far as the Indira Gandhi factor is concerned, there are many who draw parallels between Indira Gandhi and Modi, and it's quite strange that I think even within the Congress party, some say that he is very much like Mrs. Gandhi. The fact is that many of those who you would have polled don't even remember Mrs. Gandhi, were not even born during the Indira Gandhi era, but yet they've heard so much about her that they feel that yes, he has the same kind of charisma that she probably had during her heyday. But at the same time, they are here to say that there is no alternative like the Janata Party which came about, because the Congress hasn't got its act together. Nitish and the other left-wing parties are not getting their act together, and we are just 2 years away from elections. There seems to be nobody who's willing to bring together a team to even put up a little bit of a fight. So Modi's popularity is on the rise because of the Tina syndrome.
And I want to pick up on the point that Smita Prakash made and toss it to you, Indrajit, which is on the fact that a lot of the people, I'm guessing, who voted probably weren't even born when Indira Gandhi was a Prime Minister, and yet she gets 23% vote. I'm actually not surprised that Prime Minister Modi has got a 31% vote. I would have expected him to get more. But does that also tell you that the electorate or the mood of the nation is for a so-called muscular leader, which is what Prime Minister Modi is tapping on, especially if you see the contrast when you pit him against someone like a Manmohan Singh, who was seen as a weak Prime Minister, PMO, who had little control on the party and his own government. So clearly indicates that the mood of the nation is in favor of a muscular leader. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, I mean, I would say that the Indira Gandhi getting #2 spot would be a kind of a reflected sort of look at Indira Gandhi via Modi, in the sense you have the Bangladesh liberation of East Pakistan. So you have a kind of a strong, it's also, Modi is also reflective of what modern young India is in terms of aesthetics, in terms of aspirations. He is more of the people than, let's say, even, I mean, the earlier prime ministers were kind of rarefied, even Vajpayee for that matter. He was like a Chachaji, not in the Nehruvian sense, but in a kind of a more sort of the BJP version, the non-Lutyens version of that. Whereas Modi, you know, he is one of us, is kind of how he has come about and kind of connects. And that comes across not only in his rallies, but also in the way he, you know, his fireside chats, Man Ki Baat, and so it is not only reflective of what Modi wants to project, but it's also reflective of what modern India wants, which is a kind of a muscular, I mean, if you want, a Salman Khanish kind of leader who is also, who doesn't, you know, take anything from anybody lying down, and certainly is his own man, which Indira Gandhi was also her own man.
A better word could be Bahubali. But Aarti, I want to toss this to you, because another interesting poll finding in line with the previous one, which is on this being a pro-poor government. And we asked a simple question: does Modi's appeal transcend class and caste? And again, 62.35% believe that it does. So across, you know, traditionally Indian polity has largely been caste-driven. So Prime Minister Modi seems to be transcending those barriers. Does that come as a surprise? The fact that, you know, Indian polity in itself seems to be undergoing a tectonic shift under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, as it's transcending these, you know, so-called caste barriers, or is this a temporary phenomenon according to you?
Well, you know, so it's not that, you know, there is no caste element in the way Modi and Amit Shah, who actually does the election management for him, it's not that they don't take caste into consideration, because if you look at the entire strategy for UP, whether it was in 2014 or recently in the assembly elections, you know, they did target certain caste groups that they felt had been left out by, you know, successive governments in the past, because Mayawati concentrated on the Dalits and the Jatavs in particular, and, you know, Akhilesh's government, you know, basically, you know, sort of propped up and promoted Yadavs. So I think, you know, it's not that caste didn't figure, but yes, I think that, you know, the rise of Modi does reflect a kind of movement into a post-Mandal type of politics. You know, since the 90s, we've been in this whole Mandal era where, you know, the sort of, you were basically seeing caste-based politics and, you know, the whole fragmentation into different caste groups. And I think that kind of politics is coming to an end now. And, you know, we're looking really now at an aspirational kind of politics, which is more class-based than caste-based, although in India they tend to overlap, because obviously the lower castes are also the poorer classes. So they tend to overlap. But I think we're looking at an aspirational kind of politics that, you know, is not necessarily identified, is not necessarily identity politics through caste, but, you know, a kind of politics which looks at empowerment, at getting ahead, at development, at fulfilling aspirations, at getting jobs, at, you know, making more money. So, you know, it is a different era of politics completely. And I think Modi and Amit Shah have tapped into that. They have understood that, you know, we have moved out of that identity caste politics kind of era that we were in. And they've managed to tap into it. And I think that is really responsible for their continuing popularity and their continuing electoral success. But we have to see, you know, your poll says that they would win more seats than they won in 2014 if elections were held today. There are still 2 years left. And you know, as they say, even a week is a long time in politics. So I think that we should introduce a caveat, and, you know, we should be a little cautious before we jump into making predictions about what's going to happen in 2019. Because the next 2 years are going to be very crucial. There are many challenges ahead for Narendra Modi and his government. And, you know, we'll have to see how he tackles all those challenges.
Indeed, talk about 2 years. I think 2 weeks is a long time in politics always. But I'm going to turn focus and talk to all of you about Pakistan. And Jaggi, let me begin with you on this. A lot of people believe that, you know, this whole muscular thing that we were just talking about with Indrajit and Sandeep also translates into our relationship with Pakistan. I mean, the question exact was, has India been muscular with Pak? A majority of them believe yes, and they're happy with it. Do you at all believe we run the risk of escalation with our neighbors? I mean, you know, we don't have a blow hot, blow cold. We have very, very tense borders. Our relationship has not been the best over the last few months. Do we run the risk of escalation at all?
I think this government is trying to take a calculated risk and wants to call Pakistan's bluff. I think Pakistan's bluff is very clear. They want to threaten nuclear escalation and want to keep on bleeding us. So this government is trying to call the bluff and trying to see, let's see what is the threshold of pain that Pakistan has where they will really go to the next level. I think they want to see that the costs to Pakistan are at least as much as the cost they are trying to impose on us. And so far the strategy is working, but we cannot say when it can go out of control. So the government will have to calibrate this. We can't be sure of this, but for now, this muscularity is probably important because it's a message you have to send to Pakistan.
All right, so we are sending a message to Pakistan by being muscular, by talking tough, by looking into the eye, is how the BJP and the government would want to describe this. But Smita Prakash, as somebody who's watched foreign policy for many, many years, are you somebody who's apprehensive that we run the risk of escalation? And are you also somebody who believes that in his engagement with Pakistan, he's playing to the galleries back home in India?
Mr. Modi is playing to the galleries back home in India? I don't know, because he doesn't need to, firstly.
That's right.
So
yes.
there's that factor. I mean, if he really needed to play to the galleries, he could have, there was no need for him to go to Lahore, because, I mean, that was something which even Dr. Manmohan Singh didn't have the guts to do, right? He wanted to go to Gah, his hometown, his birthplace, but he didn't do it. And Mr. Modi, there was no compulsion. He didn't need to do it, but he did it. I think it was quite a strange move, if you ask me, because it was this, you know, hope. Every Prime Minister who comes in, every first-time Prime Minister who comes in thinks he's going to be the one who will deliver on India-Pakistan peace. The fact is that there is the other side. They just don't think that there is the other side which is not willing to play ball, which has never wanted to play ball, because they don't have the guts, they don't have the wherewithal to take that ambitious step to play along with India. So as a result of that, that misfired terribly. So this talking tough business, playing to the gallery, there is no election coming, so there's no need to play to the gallery. As far as this muscular policy towards Pakistan is concerned, what else can they do right now? Can they move forward and offer a hand of handshake after all the terror strikes that have happened so far? It's ridiculous. They have to take this stand, because that is what they have been, the BJP has been, that we are going to move forward if the other side agrees. Terror and talks go together was something that the UPA did. Terror and talks will not go together is something which is the BJP NDA line. So they are keeping in line. I don't think they are deviated much, other than that two instances. One was going to Lahore, and the second one which happened earlier, which was invitation to Nawaz Sharif to come. After that, if you see, there's been isolation. Even in SAARC, India has taken the leadership and just, all but isolated Pakistan in SAARC, something that successive governments, even Indira Gandhi couldn't do it, Rajiv Gandhi couldn't do it. Nobody could sideline Pakistan the way India has managed to do in SAARC. So India has taken a leadership role in this region at least, but as far as OBOR is concerned, it has ceded to China. So that is where the entire what should I say, the gamut of relationships in this region comes into question, and there the muscular foreign policy doesn't come to play.
Sure. Indrajit, do you agree with Smita Prakash? And let me just rephrase the question a little bit differently and throw another poll finding at you, which is, this sort of chest-thumping nationalistic approach to foreign policy. Is that necessarily good? Because an outcome of that is a finding like this. Do we need more preemptive action like surgical strikes to deter Pakistan? 72% of people polled believe yes. Is that necessarily good? This sort of overwhelming majority of the country saying that, let's cross borders and bomb Pakistan. Is that the outcome that a government should necessarily drive?
Yeah. See, I think this particular BJP government has the luxury of not necessarily having anyone doubt it's being soft on Pakistan. Even if it does go soft on Pakistan, it won't be noticeable until a very long time, if at all. I don't think anybody will doubt Narendra Modi's sort of patriotism when it comes to how the Prime Minister of India deals with Pakistan. But at the same time, you talk about surgical strikes. This is not something new. Again, it's how you sort of posit it out there. I think what Jaggi mentioned earlier in terms of calibration, I think because of this advantage that the Narendra Modi government has, it has a better space to actually sort of, press the levers and deal with Pakistan. And not only with Pakistan directly, but with other countries to engage with Pakistan, not necessarily directly. So for me, I think there might be a muscular quotient to the Modi government when it's dealing with Pakistan, but it's not necessarily in what it kind of is doing as for policy right now. It just comes with the package, and then it has the luxury of sort of doing a kind of discrete, sort of depending upon what kind of action needs to be done or not needs to be done. So I think it's an advantageous position that Modi has because of the reputation of the government as well as Modi himself.
Right. Aarti, do you agree with Indrajit and Smita Prakash? And even as you respond, I want to throw another quick poll finding to you, which is Modi right in opposing talks with Pakistan? Not surprising, but 58.83% said yes. But I would actually be surprised by the number of people who said no, which is 35.47% of the people polled believe that the government is wrong in opposing talks with Pakistan. Your reaction to this poll finding, and of course the comments made by both Smita and Indrajit.
Well, see, unfortunately, I don't think that we can see our relationship with Pakistan in isolation, because it's not just India-Pakistan. There is another element that has come into the relationship. Earlier, there was the US element, but as the US now under Donald Trump, seems to be a bit confused about its role in the world, the other element that has come in is China. And that's a very strong element now, particularly once this whole corridor, this economic corridor comes through. And this economic corridor is going to pass through, an area of Kashmir that we claim as our own, POK. Once China has put up that economic corridor, the whole sort of dynamics of our dispute on Kashmir will change. So, I don't think we can see this just as an India-Pakistan thing. You know, there is a China element, and you know, it's all very well to be muscular, but you know, to what extent, how far can we really go in terms of punitive strikes, in terms of punitive action, military action? I really don't know, because the fact is that Pakistan and China are in a military nexus, and they have been for some time now. And as the US retreats, you know, the US used to play referee actually between India and Pakistan. But I don't know whether China would play the same kind of referee, because China is very clearly with Pakistan, you know, and you know, the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing from China about India. I mean, they're using such strong language that I haven't heard China use for years against India. So, you know, I mean, it's a very delicate question for the Modi government. A muscular Pakistan policy is always popular. I think, you know, one of the reasons Indira Gandhi is remembered as a tough leader is because she fought that war, she dismembered Pakistan, and she defeated it, you know. So, I mean, you know, so a muscular policy with Pakistan is always popular. But, you know, unfortunately, I don't think foreign policy decisions can be taken based on populism. You know, there are so many other factors that you have to take into account. And so, you know, I think at the moment, we're seeing a lot of muscular rhetoric, but I don't know whether very much is happening on the ground in terms of action.
Okay, given that rhetoric, we've got to take a really quick breather here on this very special edition. We come back and discuss another very, very important aspect, and these are poll questions that are coming up. Has Mr. Modi deepened the communal divide? That's the other aspect we discover and come back and discuss. We also talk about the index of opposition unity. Is there anything that's on the anvil, and how are people thinking about a Mahagathbandhan? That's coming up after this very short break. All of you, please stay with us. All right, thanks very much for coming back to us on this very special edition, Modi 3.0. This is State of the Nation, a very comprehensive, exhaustive mega poll that's telling you how India is thinking and making out of Modi's 3 years in office. And we're going to touch upon the very, very important subject of the communal divide. Has that deepened, and how has Mr. Modi fared on that? Jaggi, let me begin with you on this one. And Sandeep, do you want to take this forward as far as the communal divide is concerned?
That's right, Supriya. In fact, 49% of those who polled believe that Prime Minister Modi has been a divisive force and communal divide has actually deepened. Jaggi, surprised with that finding, or do you think that's in sync with reality?
Yeah, I mean, though he has not had personally done too much of divisive rhetoric, except I think for a few days during elections, he tends to rake up a lot of things. But by and large, as Prime Minister, he has not been divisive. I think the problem is that there is a difference between Mr. Modi and his party and a little fringe that is also associated with his party. So anything that happens at the fringe will directly be attributed to him. So I think this feeling is a reflection of that point and not specifically about Modi. But because I think BJP at the fringe is definitely, and especially the Sangh fringe, the Bajrang Dals and various Hindu Vahinis and other things, they do not have the kind of image that the Prime Minister has. So whatever they do negative will stick to Modi as well, because he has not spoken out strongly against them. He has made some general remarks about Gaurakshaks, but he is not. But every time something happens, he has not been at the forefront criticizing it. So I think he needs to speak up more in order to put some distance between what is happening on the fringe and what is happening in the main government and at the state level.
Okay, we're going to take what he needs to do in just a bit from now. But Indrajit, if I may ask you a pointed question, and this has to do with the communal divide. 49%, despite a very positive narrative around Mr. Modi, 49% of our respondents actually believe that he has deepened the communal divide. I mean, you know, obviously his conspicuous silence, especially at times when those incidents happen, has not gone unnoticed. But do you believe that also works in Mr. Modi's favor, and actions have followed that silence, whether it's the appointment of Yogi Adityanath, or whether it's that all around the nation ban on cattle slaughter? Action has also followed that silence, has it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a kind of a you know, a Narasimha avatar, if you will, you know, where you have 1 foot on this side of the threshold and 1 foot on this side of the threshold. As Jaggi said, there has not been any strong statement against people who, you know, who might feel that they have the license to do things which were kind of considered as simple as, you know, communal. And there is a strange kind of sort of notion which is developing, and that there's some kind of outsourcing of lumpen communalization which is happening. So it's not going to come to the government's door, the trail, but at the same time there's a kind of a outsourcing of it where during elections the BJP can gain a little through reputation, if not anything else. So it's a kind. There's nothing sort of in cast iron like it used to be. There's no sort of kar sevaks running amok in town, or you know, I mean, anybody jumping with joy as the Babri Masjid is breaking down. But there seems to be an atmosphere where it's not as bad as it used to be. It's kind of allowed, and the danger is that this could become a kind of a default position, or rather, at least the bar of things getting, you know, ugly has kind of become slowly over the last, I would say, 2 years. It's been sort of lowered. So, I mean, if you look at the Gaurakshak chaps, or even if you look at the other stuff, even people who used to complain and be louder, and I'm not talking about the traditional anti-Modi guys, but even the sort of, you know, normal sort of neighborhood guys, they are not finding it that strange. They are not finding it that, well, scary, because they're saying, okay, maybe this is how things are.
Aarti, I'm going to take this question with you, because it was surprising for me when I read this poll finding that 48.5% of the people, you know, there's this whole nationalistic, hyper-nationalism that seems to be ruling the roost, but 48.5% of our respondents actually believe that the government should wait for the final verdict of the courts as far as the Ram temple is concerned. Are you surprised with that number? And in the same breath, if I may also go on to ask you, was the appointment of Adityanath then, you know, done in correlation with this?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm actually heartened to know that so many people feel that you know, a proper judicial process should be followed, and you shouldn't just sort of go ahead and build the Ram temple simply because, you know, a certain community sentiments center around that spot. So, you know, it's a very heartening finding, and you know, I think that you know, all the advocates of the Ram temple should really you know, look at this finding and stop to think that, you know, people in this country, I think, even though they may want a Ram temple, I think they do believe that the due process should be followed. There is faith in the judiciary, there is faith in legal processes, and I think that, you know, that faith should not be damaged or destroyed. So it's a very important finding, actually. And you know, and I think that you know, the problem here is that you know, to get back to this whole sort of communal divide, you know, it's not just the fringe element that's creating, you know, or sort of deepening the divide. We have ministers in the government who are making all kinds of statements. When that Akhlaq killing took place, for instance, that lynching in Dadri, you know, we had a union minister who was, you know, sort of making, you know, fairly communal statements. And I don't remember at any given point of time was he pulled up, or, you know, he should have actually been sacked from the government, but he was not. So, you know, I think we're not looking at the fringe only, we're looking at the mainstream. And I think it's important for Narendra Modi to, you know, make it very clear to his cabinet and to his ministers and to his leaders that these kind of statements will not do. You know, in a country which is multicultural, multi-religious, you know, so diverse, you know, we cannot have divisive statements like this. And I think it's important for Narendra Modi to speak up on this.
Let's focus to the last key finding, and I think this is the most fascinating finding. While it's evidently clear that Prime Minister Modi enjoys the overwhelming support of the people, while it's evidently clear that he's delivered on his promises, and there is a sort of, and if the elections were to be held today, he'll come to power. But here's a very interesting poll finding. 48% of respondents say they will vote for an anti-BJP Mahagathbandhan in 2019. Jaggi, is that surprising? Majority of people polled believe that they would actually vote for an anti-BJP Gathbandhan. Even though there is overwhelming support for Prime Minister Modi, there's still a wide section of people who are open to the idea of a Mahagathbandhan. Jaggi?
See, I think arithmetically it is possible, very much possible. But I think in various states, as you know, India is a bunch of state elections rolled into a national election. So we'll have to see at the state level which opposition party is comfortable with its local opposition. For example, you can't see an ADMK and DMK coming together to stop Modi. You can think of course of Lalu and Nitish doing that, but SP and BSP possibly after the drubbing they've got in the March election. But West Bengal, do you see the CPM and the Trinamool coming together to stop Modi? In any case, Trinamool probably thinks it will win on its own. So, and nor in Kerala are you going to see an UDF and LDF coming together. So, it's going to be state specific, and this 48% is probably a reflection of an arithmetic average of all the people opposed to Modi. It does not yet amount to an electoral threat, but 2019 is a different year, 2 years away, and anything can happen between now and then.
Added a caveat, but the headline from you is that it's unlikely to be an electoral threat. Indrajit, do you agree with Jaggi's assessment that this sort of Mahagathbandhan is unlikely to be an electoral threat and it will only remain an arithmetic possibility? It's okay for a poll to throw up, but in reality, electorally, it's unlikely to be a threat to the NDA government and to Prime Minister Modi.
I think 2019, I would be incredibly surprised if there's a sort of anti-Modi Gathbandhan which actually manages to sort of match mathematical theory with practice. But I think the figure that one is seeing here, it's a bit like, you know, you have a kind of a backup plan. I think people are also missing the other boxer in the ring. There is no other boxer in the ring. So it's a kind of have a Kalki avatar which is going to be there, and you know, if somebody asks, will you support a Mahagathbandhan if there is if they all coalesce? That's a lot of ifs. And again, you know, the maths might add up, but you know, the maths was supposed to add up in UP too. So I think that's a kind of a sort of backup plan, you know, in terms of people's idea of, if not Modi, who's my best friend.
Those on our screens are very telling, and Narasimha and Kalki seem to be on your mind, so a lot of mythology is what we are drawing from. But Aarti, will let you have the final say on this. You know, whether it is a Mahagathbandhan that does get formed or not, one doesn't know, or whether it will be electorally a threat at all. But my larger question is, what is going to be the catalyst for that Mahagathbandhan? The Congress for sure cannot be the fulcrum. A, it does not have the same influence, and I don't think Rahul Gandhi as a leader is as acceptable. So what will be the catalyst? What is going to be the fulcrum of the, you know, index of opposition unity to come together?
Well, I think that, you know, after the UP results, where the BJP just sort of decimated these two regional biggies, you know, the SP and BSP, I think there's a desperation that has entered the opposition. And I think that all these parties realize that if they don't get together, there's no, I mean, that is actually the only hope of being able to stop the BJP. Now, whether they'll be able to get together, you know, whether they'll be able to throw up a leader who can match Modi, you know, what will be the program of action, what will be their manifesto. I mean, all these things are very unclear. But you know, 2 years is a long time, and that is why I had put in that caveat earlier in the show that, you know, 2 years is a long time, 1 week is a long time in politics. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen over the next 2 years. And, you know, if these parties do get together, you remember, let's just go back to 2004. Vajpayee's popularity was at its peak, and the Shining India slogan somehow seemed to be, the slogan of the election. And yet Sonia Gandhi on the other side quietly put together, some kind of a coalition which seemed, absolutely, it was unlikely to win. But, it did manage to stop the BJP and the Vajpayee government actually, the Congress got more seats than the Vajpayee government. Now, I'm not saying the same thing is going to happen now, because I think, Modi is a towering figure and, there is no Sonia Gandhi on the other side, and certainly Rahul cannot play that role. So who's going to be the fulcrum of this Mahagathbandhan? Who will be the pivot? These are all questions which, we'll have to see, over the next 2 years how things develop. But I do see a distinct possibility of the opposition getting together in some kind of an anti-Modi front by the year 2019, because I think that is their last desperate hope for survival.
All right, in hope they live for survival, but that's the word coming in from our panel. Smita Prakash, Aarti Jairath, Indrajit Hazra, and of course R. Jagannathan. Thank you very, very much for being with us on this very special edition of what we're calling Modi 3.0 State of the Nation.
But before we end this show, a look at the acronyms coined by Prime Minister Modi, from JAM to SCAM, from ABCD to RSVP. Here's a look at some of the most popular ones. We leave you with that. Thanks for watching this special telecast. Good night.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/ETNow.